Well, speed cameras are temporarily down in the province. The company that provided the cameras ended its contract prematurely. And so until a new vendor gets set up, you will not get caught speeding on camera. In Ontario, Premier Doug Ford got rid of them for good, saying they're a cash grab. I'm Leisha Grabinski, and today on Blue Sky, we're taking a closer look at whether or not speed cameras work. We'll also look at other traffic calming measures. For example, the Cathedral neighborhood in Regina is evaluating new pedestrian safety measures and whether or not they should be introduced to other parts of the city. Now, some cities, like Calgary and Edmonton, have moved to lower speed limits in residential neighborhoods from 50 an hour to 40. Most cities in Saskatchewan still have 50 as the status quo. And so our question for you is this: do you think speed cameras work, or do you see them as a cash grab? Overall, how safe do you feel on Saskatchewan roads, whether that's a highway or in your community? You can call 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Maddie C. Miatiki is a professor of geography and planning and director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. We've reached him on vacation in Spain, lucky guy, and it's good to have you. Maddie, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's great being with you all the way from Spain.
Yeah, wonderful. So, when you hear that speed cameras are temporarily down in Saskatchewan, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this will create safety issues. And the reason I can say that is because that's what we saw in Toronto and in Ontario when the speed cameras were taken out. So Toronto had speed cameras in safety zones, especially around schools. And the Premier Doug Ford took them out last year in November. And since then, the amount of speeding has gone up by between 200 and 400%. And the number of fatal collisions has increased. So we know that speed kills. We know that it means that motorists have less time to slow down, and that when you hit someone or you hit another vehicle at higher speeds, the risk of serious injury or fatality goes up. And that's exactly what we saw in Toronto. And you hate to be the type of person that says, "I told you so." You hate to be the type of person that looks back on this. But this is what's happened. And people said at the time that this was going to create safety issues. And that's what's transpired. So I worry for Saskatchewan when this measure, when the cameras are down, and the evidence shows elsewhere that when they're in place, the roads are safer.
What were the arguments against them that you heard from Premier Doug Ford?
It's the same argument you hear everywhere, that the traffic cameras are a cash grab, that people this is money that's being they're reaching into the taxpayer's pocket. But really, from my perspective, it's really simple. If you don't want to get this, if you don't want to pay the fine, just slow down and drive the speed limit. And I think what we've seen is you can see it on the roads in Toronto and in Ontario where I drive, that now that the cameras are gone, people are just taking liberties because the enforcement hasn't kept up, and instead the police enforcement hasn't kept up, and instead people just feel like there's no one watching, there's no sense of accountability, and so the speeding has gone up, and the safety implications, you see it in the data already, and it's been less than a year. So I think really this is profound. It's the impact on people's lives is serious from these type of collisions, and I think something should be done about it.
I'm pretty sure that Premier Doug Ford was hoping to look at other traffic calming measures. I think he's mentioned roundabouts, speed bumps. Can you speak to that? Are those effective measures? How do they compare to speed cameras?
They are effective. So the Premier said he didn't like speed cameras, but he was in favor of things like speed bumps or traffic bump outs to try to slow down traffic. The thing is that those don't work on main arterial roads. Like on an arterial road where the speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour, you're not going to put in a speed bump. That's going to create traffic chaos, and it might impede emergency vehicles as well. So really, you need to use the right tool for the right location. And the speed cameras work in certain places, and we should absolutely be putting roads on road diets to try to slow down traffic. We should be bringing in speed bumps and other measures like the Premier said. So he's half right, but taking out the cameras, that really has worsened safety on at least Toronto roads. And the evidence shows that when the cameras are taken out, people speed more, and when there's more speeding, there's more risk of serious injuries.
We figured people would have thoughts on this, so we already have someone on the line, but I want to remind you that we are taking your calls today. We want to know if you think speed cameras work. Do you see them as a cash grab? How safe do you feel on Saskatchewan roads? What's it like in your community, whether you're talking about a neighborhood street or on the highways here in Saskatchewan? How safe do you feel? Give us a call, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Darren is on the line in Saskatoon. Hello, Darren. Welcome to Blue Sky.
Hi there. Yeah, I just wanted more talk about, well, I think for speed cameras, what's more effective than getting a ticket 3 weeks later is to have a sign up that says, you're going this speed and your target should be that speed. Those are far more effective, and I always slow down when I see those things. But speed camera, 3 weeks later doesn't make any kind of a difference, and some of the speed cameras here in the city have, regarding school zones, like if you go to Nipawin, for example, it says, school zones from this time to this time on school days. Well, we don't have school days here in the summer. Why are we not just saying, from 7 till 7 on school days? Right now, there's no point having a camera out there for the 3 kids that might be in the playground for 5 minutes in the summertime.
Do you have kids, Darren?
I do. They're all grown now.
They're grown now.
And obviously it was a terrifying, having them out on the road. But, we asked for the city to do speed bumps on my road and slow down on the road that I used to live on with my kids when they were little, and they had no desire to do that. But anyway, the main reason why I called is regarding the predictability of driving around in the city. The lights in the city that have red light cameras in the city need to be predictable, and they choose not to make them predictable. They should have countdown timers on them. All lights should have countdown timers on them so that you know where you're at as far as going through it or not. And they choose specifically on those intersections on Preston and 8th Street, Circle Drive, Avenue C. They choose not to have a countdown timer there so they can catch people in the intersection. And I think that should be illegal.
Okay, so many interesting points, Darren. I'm going to put this all to Maddie. Thanks so much for calling.
Thank you.
We'll go backwards, maybe, Maddie. Let's start with the last thing that Darren mentioned. Do you have any thoughts on red light cameras? He's talking about, that you just don't know when the camera's going to be working or not. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so in Toronto, we brought in the clock tick down that you can see as you cross the streets. And I think that actually has made a difference. People can see when to go through and when not to. So that creates a bit of predictability. Darren also mentioned the signs that show your speed. Mm-hmm. I had been skeptical about those because that seemed like a bit of a placebo, but I went and looked at the research, and the research does show that those are somewhat effective. They do have a bit of an impact, but they're not enforced. And so people learn over time that, watch your speed, you slow down a little bit, but there's no enforcement at the end of it that there is with the ticket. And I should say here, just so everyone hears it, I got dinged by a traffic speed camera myself. Right on my street, they brought one in. My street is a bit of a hill, so it feels like you need to go a bit faster to get up the hill when you come out of the parking spot. I got a traffic ticket on that, and it taught me right away. I don't want that again. That cost me money. It's a bit embarrassing. Let's not do that again. And I think that people learn, but without that enforcement, without the reinforcement of the ticket, then people start taking liberties, and before you know it, everyone is going a little bit faster, then a little bit faster, and before you know it, everyone's going quite a bit above the speed limit, and it's creating safety issues.
Okay, just as the great equalizer, I'll share one quick story with you because I also got caught on camera. I drove through a school zone, St. Michael's School in Saskatoon. It's kind of a known street because it's a school zone that's easy to miss, and I am caught on camera. My hands are at 10 and 2 like a good driver, and I was right at 50K thinking I was following the speed limit, and of course I was way over. That was a few years ago now. I do not drive fast through that street anymore. The other thing that the caller mentioned was how long it takes to actually get the ticket. So you're waiting 3 weeks before you realized you were speeding. Is that effective or ineffective?
I mean, ideally it would be immediate so that you get, you create the act and then you get the reinforcement. But yeah, there's a bit of processing time. Sure, we would like that to be faster, but I think still, once you get the ticket, especially in your example, like you see the photo of yourself you kind of know you did it. And then it just encourages you to slow down next time and to follow the rules everywhere. I think that's the key, is we don't want people getting tickets. The ideal situation is that the revenue generated from this is zero, because everyone is following the rules and the roads are safer. And I should say, in Toronto had a terrible year for traffic safety in 2016. We had 79 deaths on the roads. It was horrible. And each one of those is a story, a human tragedy and a family tragedy. We brought in a Vision Zero policy. Last year, the traffic deaths were down to 39. So we basically cut them in half, which is not zero, but it's that's almost 40 families that didn't lose someone in that year as compared to 2016. And now the numbers are going back up. And it's horrible. You're going to start to hear these terrible stories of families losing people. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, the consequences of speeding. This isn't a victimless crime. I know we all sometimes have the impulse and think no one's around, it's late at night. The caller mentioned this, outside of the school time, why can't I speed? Well, because there are a lot of vulnerable groups. It's not just kids. Seniors are also very vulnerable. And when you look at the data, a lot of the fatalities and serious injuries are actually seniors, because they're crossing the street and they don't have as much mobility. So this might not be your child, but it also might be your parent or your grandparent.
I was just in Fort Capel, a smaller community in Saskatchewan, and there was a sign that said seniors crossing. To be cautious of elderly people. But can you just speak a little bit more about school zones? Because like Darren said, it's summertime, kids aren't in school. What are the best practices when it comes to school zones and speed limits? I mean, should they not be in effect in the summertime? What's the best practice?
My own view is they should be in effect all the time, because the streets, people get killed on the roads all 12 months a year, 365. And so the idea that we're going to take them out, that we're only protecting children, but not protecting seniors, not protecting other people crossing the road. And we should also say, I mean, a lot of the fatalities, for example, on Toronto roads, they're also motorists. I mean, it's not just because you're not walking. We often think, it's just pedestrians or it's kids walking to school or home from school. But it's actually, a lot of the times it's motorists, it's cyclists, it's motorcyclists. So really, road safety impacts everyone. And if it's not you, it might be someone in your family who's walking on that road or driving on that road. Really, the consequences just ripple out from traffic fatalities. I think that's why it's so serious and so important. I mean, it feels like a victimless crime. Let's just say that you're driving on a road, everyone's going 10 kilometers over the speed limit. The road feels like it's designed for that. So we all go fast and think there's no consequences. And then something terrible happens and we look at each other and say, well, that was too bad. Surely the speed limit was too high here. Well, this is a case where we've been proactive. We've seen in Toronto, at least, the numbers, fatalities come down. And now, as soon as the cameras were removed, we see the numbers go up. The City of Toronto just put out a report on this exact situation. So, it's a pretty direct result of speed having impacts. And I think this is something we can do something about. It's not like there's no ideas. We know what to do. It's just a matter of whether we have the will to do it.
Let us know what your thoughts are on this today. We are talking about speed cameras. They're temporarily down in the province. The company that provided the cameras ended its contract prematurely. And so until a new vendor gets set up, you will not get caught speeding on camera. This is happening when Ontario made the decision to get rid of them for good. And so we're asking you, do you think speed cameras work? Do you see them as a cash grab? How safe do you feel on Saskatchewan roads? Call us today at 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Robert emails, do speed cameras work? Yes. Are they a cash grab? What's wrong grabbing cash from people who are a threat to our public safety? Keep grabbing more cash until it's safe for kids to play outside again and walk and bike to school again. Should we reduce speed limits to 30 kilometers per hour? Yes. Let's go now to another guest. Chief Robert Duchin is with the Corman Park Police Service. On Canada Day, they caught a driver doing 143 kilometers an hour in an 80K zone. The department wants drivers to know the consequences if you are caught speeding in Saskatchewan. And so we've got the police chief on the line right now to tell us more. Chief Duchin, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Just first off, I'm curious your thoughts. You've heard Maddie talk a lot about some different things. You're in the business of giving the tickets. How effective do you think tickets are?
Well, I think every time you have an interaction with a police officer, the stereotype is that it's going to be a negative interaction. Most of my officers would much rather give a little bit of education rather than give a ticket. But every officer has a threshold, a tolerance. And, the interesting thing is if you travel to countries like Australia, the tolerance for speeding is exactly 0 kilometers an hour. If you go 1 kilometer an hour over the speed limit in Australia, you're going to get a ticket. There's a probability that you can probably get away with 10 kilometers an hour in Saskatchewan before a police officer takes a second look at you. But certainly speeds like what we saw on Canada Day at 143 kilometers an hour in an 80 kilometer an hour zone, there isn't an officer in the world that's going to overlook that sort of gross offense. And, you know, the reality is that netted the offender almost $1,000 fine, $944. Their license was suspended for 7 days immediately and at the roadside, and their vehicle was impounded for 30 days. So they've got a lot of time to think about what their behavior cost them. They also have the price of the tow, the price of the impound fees, and the price of the Uber to get them from the roadside back to wherever they wanted to stay or were going.
What happens if someone is speeding in a car that belongs to someone else? I don't know what the case was on July 1st, but does the car still get impounded if you're not the owner? The car is automatically impounded. Now, if the registered owner wants to make application to have the impound lifted, they can make application. So, for example, if you had a circumstance where a child took a parent's car without consent and was driving recklessly and exceeding the speed limit, that parent may have a case to make to have the vehicle come out of impound. But as a general rule, the moment at which somebody has care and control of a vehicle, they are responsible for that vehicle regardless of who it belongs to. And so if you get a courier driver who's driving for work and they're exceeding the speed limit by more than 30 kilometers an hour in Saskatchewan, that vehicle is going to get impounded. And then on top of all of the cost, you now have to explain to your boss how you got the work truck impounded for 30 days. And so I'm guessing that is seen as an effective consequence?
I think it's an effective consequence. I think particularly if you're dealing with a driver who only has one vehicle, you take their vehicle away from them. It really does give them 30 days to think about what they've done.
What are your thoughts on the fact that our speed cameras are temporarily down? And I'm not asking you about the contract ending prematurely or why that happened and what comes next, but just to know that at this moment, we don't have them in Saskatchewan. As a police officer, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree with the professor. The reality is that speed cameras do modify driving behavior, particularly when you have a signage regime like we have in Saskatchewan. It's very difficult to be surprised by a speed camera in Saskatchewan. You're told you're entering a speed camera zone. You're told there's a speed camera ahead. I mean, if you go by that speeding, you do so at your own peril. And the reality is, the Saskatchewan model has deployed speed cameras in areas where there is either a correlation to high incidence of traffic safety, or they want to prevent speeding in areas like school zones where the consequences of excessive speed and the potential because of children nearby for serious injury or death is greatly increased. And so I think we have a good public policy around speed cameras. I think it is disappointing that they are not active for this period. And I look forward to the province negotiating a new contract and them being back up and running as soon as is possible.
We had some callers who were wondering why the contract ended with the company. The company is Vera, and according to our CBC reporting, SGI did not provide a reason, but said the company made a business decision. Vera's business decision to terminate its contract with SGI was made just days after the company received a contract termination notice from Avis Budget Group, the parent company of Avis and Budget Car Rentals. The contract termination was announced on May 26th when Vera's stock was trading at US $13.08 a share. A day later, on May 27th, the stock had fallen by more than 70% to US $3.85. What does it do to police resources, Chief Duchin, if you don't have cameras? Is the expectation that more police will be out, or what does that mean for officers?
Well, the reality in the rural municipality of Cormorant Park, we have 2,000 kilometers of roads and we have 13 police officers. And so I don't get any more officers because cameras are turned down and our turned off. And our primary focus has to be protection of life and property. Now, we are, in terms of police agencies in Saskatchewan, very proactive in our traffic enforcement. All of our vehicles are equipped with radar. All of our members are trained to operate laser speed timing devices, and the majority of our vehicles are equipped with automated license plate readers. So in terms of having the tools, we have the tools. But the reality is our size and the scale of the rural municipality limit how effective we can be. Now, on July 1st, as people from around the greater Saskatchewan area will know, that Dalmeny Arcot is a well-known 80-kilometer-an-hour speed zone. And because it is located on the Trans-Canada Highway 16, it is a place where conducting enforcement activity is not challenging and does not take a long time to find someone speeding. So like any good police agencies, we know where to look for offenders. And we have the historical context. We know that the RCOT was put in place because over the 10 years prior to its development, there were a number of serious fatal, serious injury accidents that were occurring when you mixed commuter traffic with agriculture and commercial traffic with Trans-Canada highway traffic. Everybody has competing agendas. I'm late for work. I'm trying to get to work, so I'm going to get across the highway quickly. I'm trying to get to Edmonton from Winnipeg, so I'm going to, pick up the pace on the Trans-Canada. And so the RCUT was specifically engineered to mitigate and allow for the interaction of all of those different types of traffic at that location. And by reducing the speed in the RCUT area, we were looking to minimize the severity of any traffic interactions. And so any design is only as good as the compliance within it. And one of the ways we achieve compliance is by proactively patrolling in the area.
Today we're talking about speeding. I want to go to a caller before we go back to Police Chief Robert Duchin. Carl is on the line right now in Saskatoon. Hi, Carl.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. What are your thoughts on what you're hearing today?
Well, I don't have an issue with. What I have an issue with is the way they rotated them through the different areas. Some days there'd be a speed camera at a school, some days there wouldn't, and people would, of course, play speed camera roulette. And I've been going 30 guys past me on the right, zipping through that. I think if you're going to put a speed camera sign up, put a speed camera there. I'm okay with that. It just seems like the people who play speed camera roulette, they're all over the place. If you've got Alberta plates, you don't need the speed limit, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to ask the police chief.
That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'll find out maybe more of the thinking on that. Carl, thanks for calling.
Hey, bye.
Bye. That's Carl in Saskatoon. You can call us too, 1-800-716-2221. You can email bluesky@cbc.ca. Chief Duchin, what's the thinking behind the rotating cameras? Do you see that as effective or ineffective? Do you know?
Oh, it's definitely effective. I mean, the reality is that any capital resource that you're going to have, there's never been a police chief in the history of the world who says, you've given me too much money, too many officers, and too much equipment. And so we have a finite amount of equipment that has to be deployed to cover almost an infinite amount of areas of concern. Less so in the rural municipality of Cormorant Park, but within a city like Saskatoon or a major municipality, you're going to have lots of school zones. You don't want to deter speeding in only one speed zone, or one school zone. You want to be able to redeploy your resources into different school zones. You want to be able to respond to community concerns in relation to driving behavior in a given location. And, I would just say the flip side to the rationale advanced by the caller is, well, if I leave the camera in one location for all time, time in memoriam, then people know, well, I just don't have to speed in that location. And so we want to be moving in the same way with our patrol. I ask my officers, don't go out the same road, the same time of day, day after day after day. We want driving behavior to be reflective of the fact that police are out there and we never know when we're going to encounter them. And it's the same with deployable photo resources. We want the ability to move them around.
What about people who purchase radar detectors? I don't think those are allowed, but they exist.
Well, they're allowed in Saskatchewan.
Oh.
The reality is that, like I said before, you know that the photo radar is there. It's well signed in Saskatchewan. And so a radar detector doesn't help you with that necessarily. It may help you with the patrolling speed vehicle, like police vehicles with that are radar equipped. But the reality is that deployed properly, our radars are not running all the time. And so we turn the radar on, we capture speed, we lock it in, we turn the radar off. And you have to react pretty quickly with a radar detector. And unless you have a radar and laser detector, you're not going to detect the laser. And the beauty of the laser is by the time it hits your vehicle and your laser detector is activated, it's already returned to speed to our speed timing device. And so laser detectors are particularly ineffective against laser speed timing devices.
Interesting. I want to ask you about, we got a release from Prince Albert Police. They said that they clocked a driver at 222 kilometers per hour in a 100 kilometer zone. That driver was charged with dangerous operation of a motor vehicle under the criminal code. So when does speeding become a criminal charge?
Well, it's up to the discretion of the supervisor whether they think a criminal code is warranted or a criminal code charge is warranted. I would say that the biggest mitigating factor in relation to our charge on Canada Day was you've come off a stretch of highway that is 110, so you're functionally speeding 33 over. Now, I would still pull you over and issue a ticket for that, but it doesn't raise to the level of dangerous operation of the criminal code. We look not just, it's not, this is the magic number and now we're going to proceed criminally. It's what was your manner of driving at the speed you were operating? What condition was your vehicle in? How long had you been a licensed driver and what is your driving history? And so it's the independent constellation of facts that we put together almost like a recipe. And we say, you know what, we think this has risen to the level of dangerous operation.
Okay. It's been great talking to you. Thank you, Chief Duchin. I appreciate the time you've given us today. Thank you.
Well, a pleasure to be here. And thank you for letting us talk a little bit about highway safety.
Take care. That is Chief Robert Duchin with the Corman Park Police Service. We're asking you about speeding. We're wondering how safe you feel on Saskatchewan roads. Do you think speed cameras work? They're not in operation right now. Are you like Ontario Premier Doug Ford? Do you see them as a cash grab? Give us a call, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Let's go to another caller quick. Alan in North Battleford joins us on the line. Hey, Alan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. So what are your thoughts on this? You're a professional long-haul driver.
Exactly. What I have to add is that it doesn't happen often in the kind of work I do, but there are occasions when I will be driving the same route over and over and over for like 10 hours at a time through all sorts of weather. And I slow down to at least 95, sometimes even 90. When it's foggy or snowy or dark, and when it's a good, dry, sunny day, I'm doing 105, which is the most my truck will do on the 110 speed limit. And over that 10 hours, driving the same route over and over and over, I mean, there's always these little variables that are hard to, parse. But the truth of the matter is, I don't see a difference in how long it takes me to get there. So I do not understand why everybody feels the need to drive fast. It's so common that I'll have people pass me, and when I get to the stoplight, they're just the guy in front of me. You gain nothing.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Alan, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Drive safe. That's Alan in North Battleford. What do you think? Do you have the same experience as Alan's? Do you feel that people are speeding by you only to get caught at the same light? How safe do you feel on Saskatchewan roads? Give us a shout today, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. We know that summer is also construction season, and one of the most dangerous jobs out there is flag person, trying to get people to slow down as they enter a construction site. In 2012, 18-year-old Ashley Dawn Richards was struck and killed by an SUV while working her first shift in a highway construction zone on Highway 39 near Mydale. Since then, Ministry of Highways brought in stricter safety measures in construction orange zones. So to find out how these measures are working, we're joined by a couple of people. Chantal Lipp is president of the Saskatchewan Heavy Construction Association. Chantal, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. And then we also have Alan Barilla, who's GM of Morski Construction. Alan, welcome.
Good afternoon.
So, Chantal, what measures are currently in place to keep highway construction workers safe?
Well, I mean, of course, there's always the signage that is going up pre-work zone, and then the work zone, and then post. So the signs do exist to let drivers know that you are entering a construction zone, that you're in a zone, and that, you know, now it's safe to resume traffic on the highway. That's essentially, I think, the main the main piece that is being used to alert drivers and to kind of remind them to slow down. There is radar on some job sites, but not all on Saskatchewan highways. I've seen and we've heard from some of the members that when drivers going through construction zones see that there is radar potentially on site, they do tend to slow down a little bit more than if radar is not on the work zone site. But essentially, that's it. You know, outside of radar and the construction zone signage, that is right now all that's in place to remind drivers to slow down.
Alan, you're in your yellow safety vest right now. You're in a vehicle. You spend a lot of time on these roads. What have you seen over the years?
Well, I've been working for the same company doing this is 44 years. So I've seen a lot. We're set up right now or getting set up on Highway 16 west of Saskatoon from the Delmany access, exactly where that guy got the speeding ticket, where it's 80, we're reducing it to 60. And we're doing that westbound all the way to Borden Bridge. And plus we're going to do the Delmany road, access road, plus the 305 going from Delmany to Martinsville. So all very high traffic areas. And I can tell you that there's a lot of bad drivers out here. We don't have the zone set up today, but we will have tomorrow and for the next for a couple weeks here. People don't respect the biggest problem we have is people don't respect the law. And so most people, I don't know if they're ignorant or what, but the law in Saskatchewan is that anybody with a flashing beacon, doesn't matter if it's amber or red and blue or red, white and blue, the law is to slow down to 60. I can tell you that most people slow down to 60 for the red and blue or else they get a ticket. I can tell you that 98% do not slow down for us. Our most dangerous time is putting the signs up, because the zone isn't up. So our people that are putting up the signs have people go by with their cruise on at 115, 120, 130, whatever they're got their cruise on, at 3 feet beside them. And some of them are nice enough to move over. They won't take the cruise off. They'll move over to the other lane, but they're still doing the same speed limit. Today I was out on the highway for about an hour marking the shoulder for a 12-kilometer stretch. And I'm going to say that out of the thousands of cars and trucks that went by, I had maybe 1% slow down. And I probably had 20% didn't even move over out of the lane that was 2 feet from me. So the law is, unless they don't know the law and they shouldn't be driving, if you and I have my truck lit up like a Christmas tree with beacons and amber flashing lights and four-ways on. And until somebody gets killed doing that, there's probably going to be no changes. But I can tell you that it's not very nice out here when we're trying to do what we do.
Yeah, but people have been killed, and you're very vulnerable out there. Chantal, what can you speak to that? Just how dangerous this work setting is for people?
It's extremely dangerous. The kind of work that Al does, his people are actually walking on the road right down the middle of the yellow line. So there are cars very, very close to them as they're going through the construction zone, and it's tragic. You referenced Ashley Richards earlier in this segment. The crew that worked alongside Ashley was devastated. The contractor that hired her was devastated. It's extremely emotional and heartbreaking when you're working alongside somebody for long stretches, and then they're just taken out so tragically and so unnecessarily. I mean, it's just a total disregard for human life when you think about it. I mean, these people are essentially pushing a tank through a construction zone. A lot of the semi-drivers, same thing. A lot of those guys are carrying heavy loads, and they need to realize that they need to slow down. Those construction zones are actually engineered to trigger you to kind of slow down as you get into the main area where the construction is actually taking place. And that's actually quite a common complaint that we hear is, why do I have to slow down if I don't see anybody? Well, they're designed to start to begin to get you into the headset to slow down before you actually do come in contact with construction. So that's why you could have a kilometer leading you into the construction zone before you actually see construction. And the same is taking you out of the construction zone as well. And so I think that people get a little annoyed because when they see those construction signs, they automatically assume I'm going to see construction happening right now. And that's not necessarily the case.
I'm curious about this, and so is one of our callers. So let's go to Jerry from Regina. Hey, Jerry, welcome to Blue Sky.
Thank you.
So this is exactly what you have some questions about, right?
Yes, I fully understand and fully support everything that's being talked about. But a pet peeve of mine, and I do slow down and I do move over and respect those amber flashing lights. But a pet peeve of mine was coming from Regina to Saskatoon today. There was a construction zone that slowed us down to 80 kilometers an hour. And it went on, and there was never a release point of where you could go back to the regular speed. And that was a real pet peeve of mine because...
Do you think that was just an error, or just what did you think was going on there?
It must have been an error because the majority of the time that you get the signs that say construction ended and you're good to go. But there was no such signs in this particular case.
Okay. Well, Jerry, thanks for calling. Chantal, I'll go right to you. Do you have any idea what might have happened in a scenario like that?
It could be that the contractor just didn't have the signs set up. It could be sometimes the signs get blown over too. I mean, there's a number of different scenarios. What I would suggest is to that caller specifically, or to any caller really, if they do see something like that in place, to contact the Ministry of Highways. When construction season is underway, there are engineers usually on site, and there are audits done, I believe, daily of the work zone. So if there's something that a driver is seeing a sign that's out of whack or is not in place, to contact the ministry and they can get it looked at right away. Sometimes it's an error, like I said, sometimes it's weather related. It really, and sometimes the contractors may not be actually working, but the signs remain up because there are other hazards on the road. There might be a sharp drop off, or there might be work happening adjacent to the highway that isn't necessarily in the road, but can still present itself as a hazard. So a few scenarios there.
This has been helpful, and I know we could keep talking, but I want to focus next on neighborhood streets. So Chantal, huge thanks to you, and Alan, thank you as well.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
It's Alan Barilla, GM of Morski Construction, and Chantal Lip, president of the Saskatchewan Heavy Construction Association. Now, speed and safety has been a conversation along 13th Avenue in Regina's Cathedral neighborhood. You'll see a sign saying you are entering a community safety zone. 2 years ago, the neighborhood made some changes aimed at making the streets safer for pedestrians, including lowering the speed limit to 40 and adding these crosswalk bump outs. This came after the deaths of 2 pedestrians who were hit in separate accidents while crossing 13th in 2023. The city is currently asking for feedback. CBC's Aaliyah Marco Ameni went down to 13th to talk to people. Here's Chris Plum, the owner of the Mercury Cafe and Grill on 13th.
It's all good outside of the emergency vehicles because the police fly by here sometimes. I swear they must have been doing 150. Like, it's a flash of lights. That's it. That's all you really see. So outside of that, I mean, I love it. I think it's great. They could lower it even more right in the square here to 30. But yeah, no, I'm all for it.
He's not the only one who's appreciated this traffic calming measure. Aaliyah was out with a family who was walking. Here is the father, Didi Imokpuri, with his thoughts on the community safety zone.
Love it. Wish we had this, 15 years ago. Would have saved a whole bunch of accidents, and, it's nice. It's comfortable for us to walk around. We've noticed that it's greatly increased safety in the community.
And how does that make you feel as a parent?
When we're out and about, we're constantly scanning. We're constantly feeling unsafe because people just speed like crazy through the speed zones. So we have all the little tricks as a family that we do to make sure that we keep them safe, right? Yeah.
Tell me about those tricks. What are some of them? What are your safety tricks?
We have when we're walking through alleys. What do we say?
We say always look both ways.
Yes. And we say safe. Is it safe? Mm-hmm. And then you yell safe and she yells safe, right? And then when you yell safe, what happens? And then we walk, right?
When it comes to the safety zone, it's currently set at 40.
Yes.
Do you think that's enough, or do you think that could be?
No, I think the physical harm that could come to a kid when they're hit at 40 kilometers an hour versus 30 is clearly factual, well documented. It's factors of harm and trauma from a moving vehicle's, blunt trauma. So I think we should absolutely work on reducing it to 30 or even lower. Now, this should be a walkable community. Like, we love the fact that it's set up as a walkable community. Unfortunately, we don't seem to benefit from it because we're constantly avoiding walking because we're avoiding, fast-moving vehicles.
Have you seen any instances like close calls or things like that?
Lots.
What's one that you can think of?
About 2 months ago, there was a car that was doing 60, at least 60, almost killed an elderly lady who was jogging across the street. She was basically inches from dying. It was traumatic for all of us. And then there was a day we were actually all just out walking and someone just ran into a tree right there. And it was completely smashed. And right by our home. Literally right by our home, someone ran into a fire hydrant. Again, high speed, stop signs, ran the stop signs. So I think it's such a beautiful neighborhood. So people like to drive through the neighborhood. And I think it's attractive for that reason. But unfortunately, we need to do something about the speed limits.
So would that be your suggestion to the city? Expand?
100%.
Right.
Yes.
So there is a city survey right now in Regina open until July 15th, and results will inform whether this approach is expanded to other Regina neighborhoods. We still have Maddie C. Miatiki with us. Maddie, when you hear that, I want to ask you about the two things that were done. First, let's start with the reduction of the speed limit to 40. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the reduction of the speed limit is really impactful. Some of the data presented by the World Health Organization, if a vehicle's going 50 kilometers an hour and there's a collision with a pedestrian, the likelihood of it being a fatality is 85%. If the vehicle's going 40 kilometers an hour, it's 30%. And if it's 30 kilometers an hour, it's down to 10% likelihood of fatality. There is such a speed kills. The data shows this over and over again.
There are cities who have made a wider change to this, like Edmonton and Calgary reduced residential streets to 40 instead of 50. So is there a trend of moving in a slower direction?
For sure. And in fact, in Toronto and many streets, including some in my neighborhood, the speed limit's down to 30 kilometers an hour on some of the arterial roads. And I was going to say, I mean, part of what brought this about in 2014, a woman in my neighborhood was walking on the sidewalk around lunchtime, and a van jumped onto the curb and killed her. Right on the sidewalk. She was doing nothing wrong, not even crossing the street. She got hit by a vehicle. I mean, this is the stuff that just like the impact on families and communities, it just ripples outward. And we've seen, and you just see in the data, and you see it in the human stories, and even the way that the person that they were speaking to talked about how the family responds. Like, just think about what that does to a neighborhood when people don't feel safe walking on the street. So they take other routes, or they avoid certain streets. Like, it just sucks the life out of a neighborhood that was built for community. Just think of all the connections that are not being made because people are trying to avoid fast-moving traffic. Other cities have done it, and there are ways to do it in Saskatchewan as well.
What are your thoughts on adding the crosswalk bump outs? We don't have a ton of time, but are those effective?
Yeah, changing the road engineering is another piece of the puzzle. Certainly the bump outs help. They make it shorter for people to get across. Crosswalks can help. Traffic lights slow down traffic. Narrowing the lanes, actually, a lot of traffic, we think it's engineering, but it's also psychology. If the lanes are really wide, you feel like you can go quickly. And in fact, here in Europe, it's quite noticeable that the lanes are much narrower. The vehicles are a bit smaller, but the lanes are narrower. And so it just requires you to pay much more attention than when we build roads that encourage you to think that you can go fast. They're not just designed to go fast, but they make you think and feel like it's safe going quickly. People will drive quickly, and then we have all the attendant safety issues that arise.
So my final question for you, and I know you're not a psychologist, but at the same time, knowing the work that you do, why are people so insistent on going fast, on speeding? Like, there are all these rules. We talked about all of that, but just what are your thoughts on why this is such a tough thing to tackle as a society?
I think all of us feel it. There's an impulse that it's both victimless and that the streets have been designed to enable us to go quickly. And we're all in a hurry. And again, I think like all of us who are motorists, myself included, have that impulse that we're late, we need to get somewhere. We're the pilot of this vehicle. We can go as fast as we need to go. We're a good driver. 90% of people think they're an above average driver. That belies all of the logic of statistics. And so we think that we can go quicker with no consequences. And the consequences are so severe. And I can just say, like, doing a lot of discussion about this, it's caused me to try to slow down. And I say try to slow down because I think all of us are fighting that impulse. But when you do slow down, you realize just like how much more time you have to respond, how much safer it is for everyone else around you. But really locking that in over the long term, that's what's been difficult. And that's why the safety cameras, the traffic cameras are so important, because they require you, they're an accountability mechanism when you do slip up, and they remind you to keep to the rules, and that makes everyone safer.
I've really appreciated having this conversation today, Maddie. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of our earlier guests, too. That was Maddie Miatycki. He's a professor of geography and planning and director of the Infrastructure Institute at the University of Toronto. I'm Leisha Grabinski. A lot of you called today, and we maybe didn't get all of your calls in or your emails, but email always open, bluesky@cbc.ca, and call Talkback, 1-800-661-7540, because I'm guessing some of you still have thoughts, and we'd love to hear them.